Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our next session of Equine HR. This session is all about AI, how it's showing up, how it will affect you, where it came from, and what the future looks like. I have some excellent panelists with me today. I'll be moderating some really insightful conversation. But before we get into that, I want to do some introductions. Before that, just a reminder to use that question and answer option on your WOVA app to ask any questions that you'd like the panel to answer. And we have a little poll or a quiz, if you will, to test your knowledge about AI before learning. So to start off, I'm Greer Campbell. I'm with Diverse Talent. I am Director of Marketing and Community Relations. So I've been seeing a lot of AI and how I can use it, especially in the marketing realm, but also in HR. So I'm really excited. Ramazan, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, this is Dr. Ramazan Demirli. I work for a startup here. I'm connecting from Berkeley, California, part of the larger, Silicon Valley region. I develop, technologies. I'm a research and development engineer and scientist, and I develop technologies here for health, wellness, and fitness for consumer applications. And I use typically AI and machine learning to develop these technologies based on data. And I am happy to be part of this panel and provide my feedback on my expert opinion on AI and machine learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Ebony.
Hey, good morning, everybody. So my name is Ebony Younger. I've been an HR practitioner for 20 years. So as I'm looking at the date, spring of 2004 is when I got my first HR gig. So this is kind of like a bit of an anniversary, but I'm a generalist by trade. I've spent most of my time being an HR business partner, have dug really deep into the employment practices, HR compliance area, people analytics, and for sure talent management. And so I kind of stumbled upon generative AI through my HR business partnership to one of my leaders. And at the time they were talking about machine learning and large language models. And at the time didn't make sense to me. I'm like, that sounds important, but I have no clue what that really what that means. And so I started dabbling around with like ChatGPT, and my first few interactions with it weren't great. It crashed, it wasn't working, and that was probably late 2022. But where it has come over the past like year or so, it's just amazing. And so I've taken it from using it for my personal uses to generating use cases at work around HR and how we can use it there. And so I'm super excited to just share my perspective and also learn from the panelists today. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Ebony. Latricia.
Hello, everyone. Great to see you virtually. I'm Dr. Latricia Frederick. Everybody calls me LT or Dr. LT. And I'm also an HR practitioner in corporate America. I have been with the Fortune 500 company for a number of years. And interestingly enough, I also have worked across the entire HR spectrum, from hiring to development to performance, business partner roles, program management roles, DEI. And interestingly enough, I think it was probably 10 years ago that I was introduced to large language models, as Ebony was just describing. Did not know that it was AI at the time. It was a tool that we were using to try to be more inclusive in our job descriptions. And it's really, transformed over the last several years. And so it's a unique new opportunity for us in the workplace as we think about how do we evolve the workplace given this new technology that has really taken over in a bit of a buzz fashion across the workplace and the industries.
Excellent. So as you can see, we have a very diverse perspective on AI. We kind of have the back end right in the mix and the front end in HR. So I'm very excited to hear all of the perspectives and insight. Our first question is pretty general, and it's, how have you seen AI affect the workplace? Whatever that looks like for you and your experience. if you could share that. If we want to start with Latricia.
Sure. I've seen AI affect the workplace in a number of different ways. The company I work for right now is a technology company, and so we are one of the builders. We hire people like Dr. Ramazan here to build the technology that is embedded in our different solutions to really help our customers protect against security threats. If you think about like the banking industry and how we have online banking and you can swipe your card anywhere, anytime, you want to make sure that the device that you're swiping against is secure and your data is protected. Well, we build things like that, and essentially the internet that helps us to navigate this space. When it comes to AI, that's also a space that we are heavily involved in, where we're trying to build and protect against any threats to the data that we are starting to mine. So the way that I'm seeing it show up, I shared an example earlier of how we used it with our job descriptions. When we're getting ready to hire people, we actually run the job description through a model that then checks it or evaluates it for how inclusive is the language. Are we geared toward hiring only men? Are we actually writing language that is more attractive to women engineers, for instance? And I mean, I use it even just to ideate sometimes. If I want to think about how am I going to build a new program, I might pop in some concepts around that program and then see what else is out there in the industry. So I see it changing and shifting how we've maybe done work in the past, where it might have taken 3 weeks to do some research. I can do that research now in 5 minutes. So those are a couple of different ways that we're starting to see how AI plays and shows up in the workplace.
Ramazan.
Yeah. I mean, it also has changed a lot in our industry as well. Like tech industry is all about AI, and we've been, in the past 10 years or so, we started using more of AI tools as a as a software tools and applications as part of our software suite and tools. We've been using we've been actually designing algorithms with AI and machine learning based on learning from the data, right? Before, we used to engineer these algorithms ourselves as a let's say algorithm scientist and engineer. We used to handwrite the algorithms, but now we've been developing these algorithms and machine learning models that can learn from data, and it's been a lot more efficient. It's been a lot more accurate. That's why a lot of people spend a lot of investment on AI and adoption of these technologies in a lot of different places. Yeah. So I also seen a lot of automation of our jobs, like software tools has been automated by AI. Checking the software, we have not. I mean, even in the past couple of years, we have systems that can write a code. It can check bugs for you that may exist in your code. So now it becomes it is becoming a more integral part of, let's say, software development.
Ebony.
Sure. So I think what I am really excited about seeing is that it has sparked a lot of curiosity in folks, right? Because once they start tinkering around with it and realizing all the things that, generative AI can do, or even Copilot, for instance, because I think that is something that's being used in a lot of workplaces, they start to say, oh my goodness, I, was working for an hour on this draft, and now it got me from 0 to 1 in much less time, right? So whether you are trying to draft a project plan or an outline, or even if you are drafting a sensitive email to a key stakeholder and you're trying to figure out what the right words to say, that definitely can help get you there. The other thing that I love about, particularly ChatGPT, if it has a voice function, is that it really can be your thought partner. There are so many times where I have just literally just word vomited into ChatGPT, like I have all these disparate ideas that I'm thinking about, but I think there's some cohesion. I'm not sure. And I just tell it, and it's just like, all right. And then it just literally like makes my thoughts so much more cohesive. So really, it's really helping as like a thought leader, a thought partner for you in those instances. So yeah, very, very interesting stuff.
It's like a collaborator where you can, build off of each other. That is interesting. One kind of interim question that just came to my mind is a lot of individuals feel that AI is new. And I know that that's not true. Can anyone provide any insight of how AI has been used in the past? Like on regular day life, that everyone has been using AI in a certain way, how that has shown up.
Yeah, I think I can comment on that. Yeah, so AI has been there, for so long, right? We've been talking about AI, I think, actually for the past 50 years. That it goes as far back as then. But now, I think it has become sort of like more mainstream in the past 10 years or so, but it was still invisible to us. It actually became part of a lot of software and applications and apps that we use in the smartphones. Right? It was right there. We didn't even notice it because these systems and they internally trained AI systems that make these software systems extra intelligent, right? And they have these recommendation systems like in the social media, like Facebook, LinkedIn, right? It feeds us very targeted content, advertisements. That's AI. One simple example is really when we write email, it does correction. It suggests sentences. That's also AI, right? So it's been there all along, but now it's with the arrival of large language models, ChatGPT of sort, right? It became more visible, and it will be ever more, visible in the workplace.
I agree with that. If you think about Alexa, you think about Siri, you think about you put in let's say you're farming and you put in the word, I'm planting flowers in North Carolina, and then the next thing you know, you have advertisements about geraniums or whatever starting to pop up. That is the functionality that Dr. Ramazan was just talking about. It's been there. It was just invisible. We didn't really know that it was happening, or maybe weren't paying attention to it. And then as it became more visible as a tool or a resource that we could all use, then there was and I think the social media also as an invention has also helped to propel the use and the awareness of this tool and this technology, and how everyday people can use things that maybe they weren't even aware was right there beside them. So it's just things like that I think, go into the evolution of AI, generative AI, and how you see it used today.
I'm even looking at Microsoft a little bit differently. Like if you go into PowerPoint, it will design slides for you and help you do that. From a consumer perspective or personal, think about Netflix. Like, how do they know me so well? Like, why are they they recommend stuff and you're like, oh my gosh, I would have never clicked on this had it not been recommended to me, but it's really good and I'm really liking it. So things like that. And then I also am a huge fan of Grammarly. I was an English major, but I did not do well in grammar. So I rely heavily on Grammarly to help me not use passive voice and, misspellings and what have you. So those are some of the things too, where machine learning and generative AI are in full effect.
Going off of that and segueing into our next question, you all have mentioned some great benefits of AI that we've seen. Highlighting those benefits, but can you also talk a little bit about what major challenges AI and the continual development of AI are posing? Ebony, I want to start with you.
Sure. So I'm going to put my, employment practices and compliance hat on and just say, like, listen, this thing about, security, it's so important, right? And how we use AI responsibly from a work perspective, because again, you don't want to put proprietary information or personal employee information into a system that then is going to train its data set on what you put in there that's, again, proprietary to your organization. So data breaches, those types of things, obviously concern me. And then also from a bias standpoint, right? So if you are training your data, for instance, if you want to use generative AI to help streamline your recruitment process, and you may take a look at resumes and say, okay, we want to only talk to the 5 people who we feel are the top candidates. Are we training that data with, opinions or what have you that may not be super inclusive? And so we really have to be mindful that we are also doing like human checks and making sure that there's that nuanced review if we are going to use generative AI in some of those employment decisions, whether it's, recruitment, whether it's performance management and helping to write reviews and what have you. So those are things that, kind of keep me up at night and keep, top of mind that other HR practitioners should be keeping thought of.
Wonderful. Latricia?
Yeah, I mean, I think the greatest benefit of AI is the ability to crunch such vast information in a really fast time period, and help us really communicate more effectively. Like that's, to me, that's key, right? It's efficiency and then communication. I think the greatest challenge, and Ebony kind of called it out, is junk in, junk out. So once you, and we used to coach the teenagers, whatever you put on the internet, like be careful what you post, because once it's out there, it's very difficult to get back. I think AI is very similar in whatever you put into the model, once it's out there, how do you control it? How do you navigate, the quality checks, the biases, the opinions, is it real? Like, how do you fact check AI? I don't know that we have not solved that yet. And I think that that's one of the things that we have to be careful of as this continues to evolve and more people understand how to use it. It's not necessarily controlled by, a very specific group of people who know how to create it or program it. Then what? So we really have to be thoughtful about what are we doing to help regulate, and I put that in quotation marks because you want to have space for action, but you also want to have a few controls such that you're not creating systems that you can't necessarily get your handle on again, and then have bad information that people become reliant upon out there.
Dr. Ramazan.
Yeah, I think it also, I think AI brings a lot of challenges in the workplace across the board. One big challenge is really job displacement or job security, right? According to IMF, I came across this report and listened to it a little bit. 40 to 60% of jobs in the US will be exposed to AI, meaning these jobs need to use AI tools more, a lot of these jobs need to use AI tools going forward. And some of these jobs will be eliminated because of AI, right? We've been seeing that, some, customer service workers, office clerks, they've been already replaced by AI because now the AI systems can do the same job, right? So I think the challenge is how do we navigate through this change? And this change is going to happen really fast, right? These technologies, they're right here, right now. These LLMs and ChatGPT sort of technology is right here. And now a lot of companies, they wanna use this, they wanna get a handle of this and improve their efficiency. But that it comes at a cost in terms to employees, so that they need to catch up with these these technologies. They need to adapt to these AI tools. They need to be maybe trained, right? I think those are the biggest challenges in the workplace that I'm seeing. Even in my line of work, right? We are also, at risk with AI. Now the AI can write programs, it can write code, it can, create the code and so on. So now the engineers, the new coming engineers, or even senior engineers need to keep up with this. They need to be able to use these tools to stay competitive, right? So I think that's the biggest challenge that I see. How fast we can adopt to this is really is yet to be seen.
And Greer, if I may just, add an additional point there. And that's why I think, and was so excited to be on this panel today, because I think HR has a really unique challenge, or they're uniquely positioned to aid in that, right? Into the upskilling of our workforce when it comes to these AI skills. We are in the position to do that, whether it's creating trainings or evaluating external trainings, because things are happening so fast. So you're probably better off, getting an external trainer that's already on the shelf to purchase or what have you. But I think it's on us, really to spearhead or to really be at the forefront of making sure that our workforce, they're not super freaked out about like, is this going to take my job? There is going to Dr. Ramazan's point, it is going to affect it, but how you embrace it and you being like proactive is going to be make all of the difference. And I really want to encourage those that are on the call today to really, go back to their organizations and see, how can I lean into this to help prepare my organization?
With that, I want to leave all the audience questions for the end, but one of the audience questions I think is a good segue to what you all are saying, and maybe it's playing devil's advocate, maybe it's not, but with a lot of jobs using in the near future AI, is that going to affect inclusion and DEI as it relates to hiring? This is a new addition that, of course, hopefully a lot of these companies will offer that training, but I could see us getting to the point where it's okay, it's a job requirement, it's a qualification requirement. Is that inclusive? Is that necessarily inclusive? How so, or how not, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in here. I think that it's up to all of us, including the underrepresented populations, to pay attention to what's happening around them, us, right, the community. Again, going back to just a simple example of a banking example, I have family members right now that still drive to the bank to deposit a check or to cash a check. Whereas I know several years ago, I had a personal emergency, had to go into the hospital. And the thing I was the least worried about was making sure that a bill was paid, because everything was on automatic draft. Right? Now, there's a privilege that comes with that. So I've been able to be in a position where I understand how technology can aid me in a particular situation, but it's not because it wasn't introduced to me because I'm a member of a particular class, but because I actually paid attention to what was happening around me. How do you get involved with online banking? What does that look like? What does that mean for you or me or the community? Also, for community leaders, how do we introduce these concepts to populations that may not be as proximate to the technology advances that are happening in the world? I think that AI is like any physical device that you might have, even though it might be, it's kind of like the wind, it's kind of virtual, right? Where it doesn't do anything without human connection to it. So it's not AI's fault that something is happening or that there's a bias or whatever. It's how you use it. How do you engage the tool, the resource, et cetera? So when you think about AI, will AI take my job? It will take your job if you are not diligent about knowing what that skill is, what the capability is, how it can be used in the future. Yes, it can. But it can also be the thing that sets you apart from your competitors if you understand it, if you know how to use it, if you build your skills and capabilities towards it. So I think that it's an opportunity for us, quite honestly. The more that you understand it and utilize it yourself, the better position you'll be to be the person that gets that next role or the next opportunity. Because AI actually doesn't work without humans. And I think that that's like the secret of the day is it literally does not exist without human interaction, because we humans put something in and then it does something, it gives you something back. And I think that that's one of the big misconceptions about AI.
And just one thing that I'll add to, I took a break from HR in like 2018 and became a product manager for an affordable internet product. And it was all about, making sure that low income families with K through 12 children had access to the internet. And I bring that up because I was exposed to that digital divide, that gap of how many households in America don't have access to broadband. Right? Like can't get on the internet, or if they maybe can get on the internet and they can't access it, they only have one device. So it's one device for a family of 3. So, them trying to do homework and all that other stuff. And I say that because there is a possibility of making that divide even larger with AI, right? Because if they are not exposed to it, or those populations aren't exposed to it, or we don't have representation at the table for who's developing this technology, then that can make the gap even wider. And so that's also a challenge, I think, to organizations and to HR folks to make sure that representation is there, because we already are dealing with a digital divide from a lack of access already in America.
Yeah, I think I'm going to present a more optimistic view here. Hopefully that's the case, and it's going to happen. Now, AI provides us, I think it can provide us more inclusivity, because of this technology is accessible to everyone technically, right? Everyone with a computer and broadband access can, use these tools. So maybe everybody can use ChatGPT now, right? Like imagine a student in a rural Alabama, they can ask their question to ChatGPT and get, maybe they can get educated. So it offers opportunities for access to underrepresented population, right? That I think that of course it's all up to us to enable people to have access to this, right? Because we want to make sure, and I think as a society or even in the workplace, make sure people have access to these tools, and we want to make sure how we train them to be able to use these tools. So that will, I think, it will improve inclusivity across the board.
Thank you. Now, Dr. Ramazan, I am interested for this next question for you to kick us off I know we've talked a little bit about how AI is going to continue to show up in our jobs in the future, but AI itself, what does it look like in the near future? How is it itself going to continue to evolve?
Yeah, I think it's going to evolve. It's going to continue evolving fast. Imagine, things happen since the release of ChatGPT. This is really a year and a half, 2 years ago, right? It has changed the conversation across the board. It has changed a lot of things. It pushed a lot of other big tech companies to focus on what OpenAI has been doing, right? So this is going to evolve. This LLM technology, generative AI, is going to evolve. It's going to be more, I think, the way I see it, it's going to be more widespread in our daily workflows. We're going to be starting using a lot of AI tools, or a lot of the software that we use will be complemented by AI, right? That's, I think, going to happen in the near future. But now, if you think about the far future, a lot of other interesting things can happen. One is really once the AI starts getting into our physical world. Now it's pretty much in the virtual world. It's on my computer, it's on the internet, right? It's in the virtual world. But now, let's say if the robots are equipped with AI, right? Now it becomes a physical being. Imagine a really intelligent robot. Now it'll be able to do physical tasks. Maybe it'll start with routine jobs like flipping burgers, right? Or making serving in the restaurant. So that can happen, I think, in the not too far future as well. So that's really that presents even bigger risk and challenges to our workplace and society as a whole, right? How are we going to cope with all these big changes? So it's really I mean, you can do a lot of speculation on this and envision, but that's, I think, where the future is going to go. A lot of people a lot of people have concern about this, right? Some people are optimistic that it will help us, it will propel humanity, maybe we'll have to work less. But a lot of other people are pessimistic, thinking, it's going to change, the way we work altogether, or it's going to make us obsolete, right? So the future is, I think, in summary, I would say it's uncertain at this point. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, Ebony and Latricia, I want to ask you the same question, but in terms of HR, how do you see the future of AI in HR? Ebony, if you want to kick us off.
Sure, I couldn't get to that unmute button fast enough. So look, if I'm putting on like my HR business partner hat, we always talk about wanting to be more strategic, right? Not being super caught up in the minutia of things that have to get done, but really take time and energy away from us to really be able to engage with our stakeholders and talk about strategic initiatives and how we can like really push the agenda forward. And I think, AI is going to definitely help us with that. I can already dream of a world where performance reviews aren't as cumbersome as they are. Like, I don't know if in my 20-year career that I've ever like come across any manager that's like, yeah, performance review time, let's go. Like, never. And so I dream of a world where it is much, easier process for everyone involved. And we're really giving like great feedback that is needed to our employees and to our leaders to really push our organizations forward. I really see that. But I also just see this being a situation where we can crowdsource really great ideas, like where, we're getting calls to action to say, hey, go out there and develop some use cases and let's test a few and let's see how it goes. I definitely see that happening, not just within HR, but within other departments as well. And so what I encourage HR folks to do is to get with your IT departments and to get with legal and to think about what use cases, one or two, that you want to try for this particular year and see where it goes. So get creative, get curious, but I definitely see it really augmenting our work, bring us up to do the things that really are going to push our businesses forward.
Yeah, I love that. And I'll just, add a little bit here. I see AI as, to your point on augmentation, I see it as an accelerator for innovation. I see AI in the workplace as a tool or a resource that can help the workplace become intrapreneurs in a way, right? So if you're thinking about, a new program or a new idea or a new initiative and how you want to pitch something, oftentimes leaders want to know, well, what else has already been done, or how else is the competition doing it, or where else do we have a mental model that's already tried it and we want to build upon it. So what if you were able to put that idea, that concept into some platform that can then crowdsource for you those suggestions on ways that you might approach something. I also see it as a tool, like if I think about the whole employee life cycle, hiring, development, retention, promotion, succession, I see it as ways to mine data to field each one of those key areas. So when I think about hiring, what if I am looking for female software engineers in the Toronto region that have a specific skill set? Can I put that in somewhere and then it's able to help crowdsource and mine the data and give me an idea of where, maybe it's not Toronto that I need to be focused, maybe I need to be focused in Quebec, right? And it gives us that intelligence of what we should be doing and where we should be going as leaders. Same thing if I think about succession planning and I look at the performance reviews that Ebony just talked about, can it read the data to be able to tell me who's the right best next person to be up for an opportunity? So I see it as a tool that really helps to accelerate the ideas that we have without having to do a little bit of that say, I call it carrying the tree, the heavy lifting of what do we have, when is it, where is it, and then the key piece is how do we validate that data? How do we know that it's true and it's information that we can rely upon? And I think that that's what our greatest opportunity is.
And I think I'll say one more thing that we haven't mentioned yet is around feedback. So if you have a listening strategy, an employee opinion survey, it can take those hundreds or thousands, depending on how large your organization is, it can take those comments and do the sentiments and help you understand like what you need to be focused on, instead of having like, bless their hearts, 2 or 3 people reading through these comments and trying to pull out, what's important and what they want to act on. You can literally load this stuff into, into a data set or into a large language model reader and, have it give you back that information. So I think that's a really great area of opportunity for HR practitioners.
Wonderful. The last question that I'll ask before we dive into the audience questions, Latricia, you had mentioned before, what's the most common misconception as it relates to AI? Do you want to kick us off, Latricia?
Sure. So I mentioned like AI will take my job. I think that's a big one. That's probably the biggest one. The other one that stands out is like the AI works exactly like a human brain. And it doesn't. There's no replacement for human judgment. Again, AI doesn't work without humans, without us. We have to be the ones that can help provide that organizational context in which the thing will be used. And I want to challenge the audience to think about how might a solution or a tool like generative AI, ChatGPT, Copilot, etc., help you be better faster at whatever it is that you're trying to do? Because that's really what it's created for and how it can help us all. One example that comes to mind is we have like noise removal as a part of our tools like Zoom or WebEx, where with Cisco. And so I could work anywhere at any time and my audience won't hear maybe what I'm hearing, right? And so it's like, well, how did you know that? I mean, it does have some context that is built in, but also I have to be aware of, well, just because I can hear something, maybe I'm going to be distracted and I need to be thinking about how am I going to communicate. So we just have to remember that it doesn't work exactly like we do as humans. It helps us as humans, but it can't replace us.
Ramazan.
Yeah, I think I agree with, Dr. LT here. Another misconception is really that AI has consciousness. or emotions or feelings. I mean, regular lay people might think that way, the way they interact with humans. It's really like human-like. It knows everything. It can make jokes. It comes across as it has like human-like consciousness, right? But the fact of the matter is, it's not. AI is based on just data and algorithms and training, and it's as good as the data that has been trained on. But at this point, now the LLMs, right, the ChatGPT has been trained on what is available on internet pretty much, which is a lot of data. So that's why it's so powerful, right? But it's not, it doesn't quite think like, as Dr. LT said, like humans. The way our intelligence works is different. The way we learn is different. We learn by examples. We can learn by very few examples, but the AI has to learn from a lot of examples. That's I think that is one of our advantage as humans with respect to AI. Even a 5-year-old can learn a lot from few examples, right? It can reason. The AI doesn't have quite a reasoning capacity that we have. It has some reasoning capacity, but it's not. We don't actually know how it works either. That reasoning capacity, and one of the things that's true is really we don't know internally because these systems are so complex. They have 7 billion parameters, right? This ChatGPT, it's so complex that we can't explain how it works, but all we know is just it works. That's not a misconception, but that's the fact, right? So it's good to know, I guess, for everyone, especially in people using these tools, it's good to know the underlying, the underlying technology or the underlying a theory or I would say math behind it, so that we can have a realistic expectation from it.
Ebony, anything to add?
Not much other than, just to be sure that folks are fact checking, what is being generated out of some of these tools, similar to what they both said. Sometimes I will either on the front end or back end, right? So on the front end, a person may create a prompt that's real like basic, right? To generate some type of product. Like, let's just say we want to put together an outline or what have you. But if you don't have the expertise necessarily, your prompt either isn't going to be that great, or what's generated is going to have a lot of, like, what do they call it, Dr. Ramzan? Hallucinations, or it'll sound good. But once you start reading it, you're like, this ain't it. So if you don't have the expertise either on the front end to like put in a more sophisticated prompt, or the expertise to actually read through the output to see where, oh, that's not right, or that was made up, or I need to fact check that, then you're going to be delivering a product to someone and it's not going to look good for you. So just make sure that, you are fact checking and, putting those human eyes to whatever is coming out of, whatever tool that you're using, again, whether it's like Copilot, ChatGPT, all the things that are out there.
Excellent. Looks like we have time for one audience question. This question came through. It says, in what ways do you balance the efficiency gains of AI with the importance of maintaining a human touch in HR interactions, particularly in areas like employee support and counseling?
Again, I think it goes back to the combination of the two, the human and the tool, or the output from the tool. So if I think about like counseling, for instance, or, coaching, as an example, you may be, as an HR professional, we might be presented with a challenge, an issue, where there's like a case study or a use case. We have a team who feel that they have been slighted because of XYZ reason. Okay. Then we typically go into some question-based, consulting, really trying to understand the situation. It may be that I go to AI and say, I'm faced with this question, what are some good questions that I could then ask, the client or the customer, right? Or I'm faced with this scenario, how have other leaders dealt with this situation? Boom. Now it's going to give me a few responses on things that I can think about as I consider how am I going to navigate whatever that situation is. So it's not necessarily that I'm going to redirect the individual to a tool, but that I might use the tool as the practitioner to understand different ways of engaging with my customer, client, consultant, et cetera. So those are just a few ideas of how that could play out.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree on that one. I think, and as I'm looking at my notes, I definitely think from an employee relations standpoint, right? I don't think it's ever going to be able to like conduct a full investigation for you. But for instance, note taker, I am a huge proponent of, using whether it's Teams and their note taking capability there. Fireflies.ai is really great. It has a lot of great security measures there. And these people are not paying me. I am not a sponsor of them. I'm just saying what I use. Or Otter even, right? And so you're really able to engage during that investigative meeting and not have to worry about like, oh, 1 second, let me write my notes, let me type this down. So you're really able to be engaged. And then those platforms, those tools are then able to synthesize all of that information for you so you can be able to like more quickly get to the determination of your investigation. Your notes are typed up and good to go. Like I see that as a really great way to use it in some of those scenarios where there's a technology piece to it, but obviously there's a human side of it where you're engaging with whomever you're speaking with.
Excellent. Any other thoughts on that question? Wonderful. Well, I really, really appreciate the insight from all three of you, Ramazan, Ebony, Latricia. This was so insightful, and hopefully it was incredibly educational for anyone who is interested in learning more about AI. Obviously, it is very recommended to stay in the know as it relates to AI, as it continues to rapidly expand and evolve. Please don't hesitate to visit your attendee center of your app and go to Ebony, Ramazan, or Latricia's profiles to ask them any more questions that we may not have been able to hit on. Our next session is all around the outdoors and wellness. But panelists, thank you so much for your time today. This is all being recorded just in case you joined us late or had to leave early. Any last thoughts before we close out?
Well, I'd like to thank you, Greer, for providing us this forum to discuss. It's been great discussions, and I learned a lot from my colleagues here.
Good. I am so glad.
I'll just also throw out a quick quote: change is the only constant. And we just have to remember that we are an evolved people. We continue to evolve as a society, and it's up to us to figure out how do we navigate the evolution that is in front of us.
And I'll just say, stay curious, my friends. There's so much out there to learn, whether it's podcasts, SHRM just released a great cover article around upskilling and reskilling around generative AI. So just stay curious, get out there and learn as much as you can, and just get your hands in it. If you're a little bit nervous about it, just, jump in there, try out some stuff, even from a personal perspective, and then, start getting and building that muscle so you can take it back to your workplaces.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, thank you all. I'm sure we'll be seeing you again, and we'll see participants in the next session.